Luciano. I make videos on the internet, and today we are going to be doing a final examination of the last little bits of generic Cartoon World. We're going to be taking a brief look at the scenarios, the general perks, and the general items, and sharing a little bit of final thoughts on one of my favorite jumps ever. My name's Luciano. I make videos on the internet. If you are new here, I'm so delighted that you've decided to stop by. I do often talk about jump chains, but that's not the only thing I talk about. And if you are a returning friend, I'm so stoked that you've decided to stop by and make me a part of your day again. Let's go ahead and jump on down to the general perks, so that way we can go ahead and start to talk about the substance of today's video. So, as you can see here, there are several different fairly low cost, although some not quite so low cost, general perks in this jump. We're going to go ahead and talk about them, starting with Tune Up. This is a perk that allows you to gain an instinctual sense of comedic timing, a whole bunch of funny things, and also allows you to tap into your childlike innocence and childlike sense of wonder. For veteran jumpers, for experienced jumpers who've been at this for tens of years or even centuries, this is something that could be very helpful. It's also just a little bit of a nice way to stay calm, cool, and collected. From here, there is tunification. The way that tunification works is that it allows you to do things a little bit more with tune physics. It allows you to turn all of your powers and fiat-backed items and all of that stuff into tune versions of themselves for the jump. Now, there is some interesting text here about for the jump, but essentially if you like all of the cartoony vibes and you want to stick with them, then you can use this to be able to give that stuff to your powers, perks, items, and abilities. Just a really nice thing to have. The first not free perk in this section is called Spitshine. This is a perk that allows you to very easily clean things up. It can be very good if your jumper is still concerned with those kinds of things. It can be surprisingly nice in a lot of different settings. If you are doing something like going to generic Custodian Warrior or going to one of the Power Wash Simulator jumps, it can be very handy, that kind of thing. Melodic Mischief is a perk that allows you to get much better at playing music and allows you to apply sort of cartoony stuff to music and cartoon logic to the music that you make. Senseless Media Sense is a surprisingly very powerful perk given the low cost that allows you to sense when you're being recorded in some form or fashion and allows you to be aware of the recording device's locations and all of this kind of stuff. Now, there are a lot of uses for this ability. I'm kind of surprised that this one is only 50 points just because of how universally useful it is for jumpers regardless of their level of power and regardless of the sort of jumps that they go to, because it is not limited to mundane technology. It says when you're being recorded in some form or fashion, so that means that if someone is like scrying on you or using some other sort of supernatural divination method to figure out what you're up to, it still works. On-model modeling is a perk that allows you to get rid of body dysmorphia and especially any body dysmorphic effects that you might experience when you're adjusting to a new body or shapeshifting into something else. Another very handy perk. It also has some little extra stuff that I'm not going to quite read right now, just to encourage you to come back or to pause the video and take a look at this. Cartoon framing is one of the more interesting general perks here, and the way that this works is that you can use this power to link other people, beings, or objects, and by framing them in a picture frame, you can use this power to effectively alter evidence, links, any of that kind of stuff to redirect any clues that exist to the framed victim. This is a very fun ability. I really like this one. I think that a lot of different jumpers, especially non-good jumpers or mystery solving jumpers, would have a lot of fun with this. Main character retcon allows you to just have more entry options into a jump. I'm not going to read out all of it, but one of the big things that it does is in a jump dock, you still pick your species, but you can alter the in-universe backstory and your in-universe species of that jump. There is a lot of fun things that this allows you to do. This is an almost meta option. It's not quite meta, but it's something that's like meta adjacent, and you'll find plenty of those perks if you know where to look. Copyright is a perk that allows you to stop people from using your icon, symbols, etc. without your approval. It also forces people to not misrepresent you or your words, and it keeps them from lying about you, which is potentially extraordinarily powerful. It also sort of fiat backs the idea of you, which means that others cannot clone you or study your genetics without your approval. There are interesting ways to get this second bit, but the real power here is the first bit, even though the second section is also quite strong. Copy Wrong is another 100 choice point tier perk, and it stops people from copying, turning off, or suppressing your abilities, all of that stuff without your permission given freely and without coercion. This is something that is very important because a lot of people have misunderstandings about what fiat backing means in the context of like, oh, your powers work in any settings or that kind of thing. And this is a very good perk for people who are paranoid and who do not have that little baby misunderstanding of how these kinds of things work, because stuff that you have that is fiat backed can still be suppressed by in-universe methods unless you have a perk that says that it can't. Now, obviously, things get a little tricky if you are blending magic systems or something like that, but if you are in an anti-magic zone, the fact that you have magic through fiat backing does not by itself grant your magic immunity to being suppressed or that kind of thing temporarily, and this perk does stop that. This perk means that all of your stuff trumps all of that other stuff, unless that other stuff is somehow fiat backed, such as through a scenario or through a drawback, to be able to affect you and trump your perks. Tick, tick, tick is the, I hope I said the right number of ticks, I might have said 3 when I meant to say 4, is a perk that allows you to hypnotize people. It is cartoon hypnosis, so it's not quite as ludicrously strong as it sounds like it could be. Still very good, still potentially very handy as a nice little tool in your back pocket. A walk inside the canvas is the first 200 choice point perk, and this allows you to enter into things like canvases, paintings, or pictures, and beyond the cartoon ability of being able to enter into those things and just sort of exist within the confines of the painting, the picture, or what have you. This allows you to expand those kinds of things. So if you enter into a painting or a picture, that kind of thing, you will be able to make it much bigger, much cooler, much more epic, while still being able to interact with it. And of course, this is a way for humans to get the ability to do this, because toons have it innately, but a human doesn't. Status Quo is a very fun perk that causes property damage that is done by you, your perks, your companions, your items, or your powers to be restored overnight. So if you guys blow up a city while you are fighting a supermassive death kaiju, then all of the property damage that happened will be undone overnight, which is potentially an extremely handy ability to have if you are the sort of jumper where you're getting into these big, epic knockdown fights that blow up buildings and that kind of stuff. The first and only 400 choice point perk in this section is Toon Parody Rescue Crew, which is another really fun one. This makes it so that if you are stuck in a place you're unable to get away from, trapped or cursed, that kind of thing, toons will appear and they will get you out of the situation that you are in. So if you are somehow stuck in jail forever and there's no way you could get out by yourself, but you have this perk, toons will appear and they will get you out somehow. There are important there are important caveats to this. This is not unlimited, free for all of that kind of stuff. But there is stuff like a rescue timer that counts down how long until you're able to do this again. There is stuff like some things that they can't get you out of. It's also easier for them to get you out of some situations than it might be for them to get you out of others. But one of the nice things about this is you'll be fully gotten out of the situation for you. They'll fully free you from whatever is happening. So if you're stuck in a super special time loop thing, they will find some way to break you out of the time loop. If you are in jail, they will take you to a safe place and they'll get you a change of identity and a change of clothes that will help you not get caught immediately after. Now, again, this isn't unlimited, but this is a very powerful perk, hence why it has the nice little price tag that it does. The only 600 choice points perk in this particular section is Reboot It. And Reboot It is a very fascinating sort of ultra 1-up that can affect not only you, but the entire dimension or universe or whatever that you are in. And it is very, very, very strong. This is something that is very handy if you want to go to settings where these kinds of things just sort of happen. Something like, say, Marvel or DC, where big scary reboots are both a thing that happens in the real world and also in some cases in the canon itself. This is a very good perk for jumpers who want to go deal with that kind of situation in their chain. Yeah. We are now looking at the general items. There are a whole bunch of these. Some of my favorite items in a jump that is already stacked with some real doozies of items are in this section. There are 2 free items. There is Souvenirs, which gives you a copy of the films, TV shows, comics, radio shows, etc. that you and your companions produce during this and every jump in multiple formats. So if you and your jumpers, your companions, all that kind of stuff, go into future jumps from here and you guys create like movies and TV shows, whether you do it using stuff from this jump or you don't do it using stuff from this jump, you are still able to get copies of them in case you want to watch them or in case you want to air them somewhere else. The next free item is Toon Theming, which causes your warehouse to change, making it so that your warehouse has a toonish theme and lots of other little stuff little things like that. The first not free item here is the Temporal Toon Alarm Clock. This is a special shape-shifting clock that has a number of different forms and a number of different abilities. One of the most useful forms for a lot of people, especially if you are here as a baby jumper, is if you use it as an alarm clock, because as an alarm clock, it will ensure beyond any doubt that you wake up on time, and it can be used to set different alarm triggers, which can be very handy if you are out camping or you're in a dangerous place and you want it to go off in case someone comes into a certain range of you and your friends, like the alarm spell from D&D. If you use it as a wristwatch, it's one of those silly spy watches that has like a whole bunch of different utility abilities, and you can even use it as a pocket watch, which can be very helpful if someone has a hypnosis ability, even though it actually does not give even a small form of hypnosis by itself. The next item is Snappy, which is a special cartoon camera that has her own tripod legs and a fedora hat. It is a sort of journalist little homie friend that has a fair amount of intelligence and also has a lot of different news-related abilities for anyone who's interested in that kind of stuff. Shoulder, Cherub, and Imp provides 2 Toon pets, and these are cartoons in the shape of like the little Valentine's Day baby angel and like a small little imp, so like a small little red devil, and they do the thing from like The Emperor's New Groove, where one of them provides good advice that is based on helping other people and working together, and the other one provides more evil advice that is still helpful for you and your goals, but is obviously morally different and not as good. They have a number of different little abilities as well, like they can turn invisible to everyone else, and they can spy on people. That said, you do have to convince them to do that. They also have a baby mage hand ability. They can fly and they can carry about a pound each, with them maybe managing to carry 5 pounds worth of something if they work together. They're only 6 inches tall, so you shouldn't be expecting a whole lot out of them, but there's still enough there that could be very interesting. Jeeves is the first 100 choice point toon pet item in this jump, in the general item section at least, and he is a butler that has a whole bunch of butler skills. There is a lot of really cool stuff that he has, but he also has the equivalent of perks, which makes him very, very, very handy if you are someone who is a human, or even if you are a cartoon who doesn't have these abilities. Specifically, he has the Hammer Space Specialist, Concussive Cure-All, Spit Shine, and Stunt Double abilities, and the Stunt Double ability is very interesting because the Stunt Double ability is actually a human ability, one of the few expressly hyper magical abilities that humans can get in this jump, assuming you assume like I do that perks are things that characters have some version of, even if a perk has fiat backing and is thus cooler in some way. Chester is the next toon pet, and this is essentially a toon pet dog that is in the shape of a treasure chest with 4 legs. He has a lot of mimic related abilities for those of you who are familiar with mimics from D&D and like Dragon Quest and a bunch of other fantasy things. He also has a very handy hammer space inventory, so if you are a human who lacks an inventory, or you just don't want to put stuff in your inventory for whatever reason, this is an item that could be very handy for you. Just something to keep in mind. We are now at the 200 choice point tier. I believe there is only one, and I was correct, item in this tier. This is one of those items that is particularly goated. I really like it. This is the owner of this item makes you the owner of an enormous Toon Theater, which is larger than the largest movie theater in the real world. I believe it has 100 screens. It has a media repository. It is a Toon Pet, so it is alive because of this, and that lets you have a lot of cool stuff with it. It is able to produce food and items and run itself for free, so you are able to get you're able to get more money from it than you normally would. Now, that said, just like in real life, one of the enormous draws, one of the big ways that movie theaters make money is through concessions and that kind of stuff, not through ticket sales. I've worked in movie theaters. I don't know if it's still exactly like this, but that is definitely something to keep in mind. If you have out-of-jump movies, then you are able to make a lot of money, and even if you don't, because the movie theater runs itself, able to have its own little NPC peeps and generates its own food and all of that, you are still going to be getting a lot more money than you normally would. So that's just something to keep in mind. It also has all of the Toon Pet stuff and has the standard fiat backing policies for property items, such as you don't have to pay any sort of expenses on it. It has a few little extra things, like it will never be damaged by anything but deliberate attacks. That is not always included in the generic property item text for people who are curious about fiat backing, but that's very nice. The 400 choice points items tier begins with the Deluxe Acme brand portable hole, which is a toon object, and this is a hole that you can put on the ground, and that works in a number of different ways, but one of the biggest things that it does is that it provides instantaneous teleportation to previously visited locations. This is a very handy item. This is a interesting way to get some sort of fast travel. This jump is replete with options for fast travel, but this is one of the more amusing ones. You can use it as just a regular hole, so you could use it to attach to walls and then to just sort of jump through to the other side of the wall. You can use it to jump down to different places if you want, and you can use it to fast travel. Super fun little item. Scribbles is a really weird item, but I really like it. It's a fun one. The way that it works is that you have billions of microscopic scribble toons. Scribble toons are the essentially the most basic kind of toons that you can make. They're like little scribbles that you then bring to life with just a little bit of animation stuff. And if you have this item, you don't really need to worry about all of that kind of stuff. What you really need to be thinking about is the fact that if you buy this item, you get a pill that contains billions of these little lads. You can then take the pill and you will gain access to a very interesting sort of hive mind that exists to help you, and that exists to help you with mental processing things in a number of different ways. This is a really interesting item. I don't think that I have the biggest brain necessary to really help people understand what this does, but this makes your thinking more efficient and more streamlined. That's the simplest way that I can put it. The little toons that now live in your brain are helpful little homies that want to help you out and do a lot of different things. There's enough of them that they are together able to do a decent amount of stuff. It's just that the way that this item is structured, it's pretty intense. One of the big things that it gives you is a near perfect awareness of your perceivable environment and your body. Your thinking is a lot more streamlined, and the colony is able to learn itself, and they can help you draw accurate inferences from even little bits of data. So it is worth thinking about this item a lot. It is a little bit heftier on the price tag, costing 400 points, but there's a reason why it costs that much, and I definitely think that it can be very handy for a lot of different jumpers. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to invest it. Magnetic Convenience is a magnet, but it is a cartoon magnet, and as such, it has cartoon silliness. This allows you to use the rule of funny to get stuff like a sandwich, cake with a hacksaw in it, anything that you can use to tell jokes or that would be amusing and would potentially make an audience laugh if they were watching it in a sitcom. So this is a very useful item. I feel like this is probably for most jumpers more useful than the convenient bag item, which I believe is either in the half toon or toon origin and is one of the more pricey items. We are now at my favorite item. This is very possibly my favorite item of all time across any jump that I have seen to date, the Acme Worldwide Theme Parks. And this item is phenomenal. This is a series of 15 placeable theme parks, which you can import into a setting at any time. They default to being placed in major economically influential cities, and there is a lot to know here, but this is essentially, in some ways, if you had Disney World, but if you had like the Epcot fantasy version of Disney World, in addition to all of the fun stuff of owning theme parks. There's stuff like apartments that employees can live in, grocery stores, schools, very much small cities in and of themselves, and you are the owner, which means that you should expect to be getting a ton of money just every single day, because again, this is 15, although you don't necessarily have to like place all of them everywhere all at once. But even just one of these placed in a popular city will definitely give you a fortune every single day. This is a phenomenal item. One of the interesting bits here is that there is a fast travel function here that ignores physics completely. It is possibly the best fast travel that you can get in this jump, although it is not unlimited fast travel like Montage is, provided you are within range to use Montage or something like that. But this is honestly just a phenomenal item. I strongly recommend that people sit down and read the full description of it. I am not doing it justice because I don't want this video to be like an hour long, but if there were any item that I could talk about in a jump chain for over an hour, it would probably be this one. I love this item. The final item in this section, and thus the final item we're going to talk about today, is the silver screen, which costs 1,000 choice points. As a little bit of a Luciano fun fact, the first time I ever came across this jump, it already had this item. I don't know when it was added, because this jump has been updated a whole bunch of times, and it was the first item I had ever seen that cost 1,000 choice points. I have actually, in the time since that little fun fact about me was established, seen multiple items that cost more than 1,000 choice points. I have actually written, to this day, I believe only a single item that costs more than 1,000 choice points. And the way that this works is that you have a super phenomenal, super magical, super fiat-backed movie screen that is 76 by 99 feet tall and wide. It seems to be made out of heavy white vinyl, but it's actually made out of chains, jump chains, and it is light as a feather, to you at least. You can project any kind of media onto the screen, and it will begin searching across the infinity of reality for the closest matches to whatever it can find that is being depicted. You can then enter it once it has locked in and be able to explore wherever your jump chan allows you to go and wherever you can find media of. And provided you are doing everything by the book and you are abiding by your jump chan's rules, you have a number of protections when you are in this place that are very, very good. Because this item could be misused and it could lead a foolish jumper to a very premature jump slash chain fail if they misuse the item. But in reality, some of the other really handy things for this particular item are things like it allows you to use it as a shield. It allows you to use it as an attack. It can cut objects in half. It can cut foes in half. It will defend itself or you, and it can trick people into coming inside of it and then shutting off the barrier, which can be used to cut something in half, but it can also be used to just sort of trap someone, at least for a little while. There is a lot to know about this item. It is an absolute doozy of an item. I strongly recommend that you come and you read this description yourself. I know that I've been saying that a lot, but for these heavier duty items, that is something that is probably pretty important. And heavy duty does not always mean heavy duty in terms of like, oh, it is expensive, but in some cases, as is the case with like the Scribbles cartoon item, you are probably going to have to come and read it yourself just to get a full grasp of what the item does. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about scenarios. We are now in the scenario section, and we are not going to talk about every single scenario because there's a lot. I feel like it's pretty easy for people to just sort of assume that generic jumps don't tend to have scenarios, but when a generic jump has a scenario, that's a sign of some real commitment, and this particular jump has several. So I'm going to go ahead and mention right now that some scenarios have completely original rewards, so they are rewards that you cannot get unless you go and you complete the scenario. And then some scenarios exist to help jumpers gain one of the big capstone items. So a game of MacGuffins is a treasure hunt scenario, and a MacGuffin is a special toon item. And one of the really interesting things about this particular scenario is that, assuming you take it as it is written and you don't do any sort of editing to fit your chain, there is an announcement at the beginning of the scenario where they say whoever has the MacGuffin at the end of your stay in this setting will take your place in a jump chain. And now I'm going to assume that they're probably not going to say that you specifically are the jumper, although if your benefactor is mean, they might say that. But by default, actually failing this scenario doesn't do anything negative to you. All it means is that you don't get the reward, and the reward is the MacGuffin. But in order to complete the scenario, you have to find the MacGuffin, and you have to keep it in your possession without being destroyed when the jump is over. So there are a number of different ways you could do this. You could just wait until the very last minute, get the MacGuffin, win that way. You could get the MacGuffin, you could keep it the whole jump. There are plenty of jumper ways to be able to do this. Even though there are some little tricks in this particular jump that are kind of nasty. One of the things in this jump that's kind of nasty is that the in-jump inventory ability, Hammer Space, can be hijacked by cartoons with the Hammer Space Specialist ability. That said, the Hammer Space Specialist ability does not allow them to steal from other sorts of inventories. So if you are just a gamer jumper who has that kind of inventory, you could just stick the MacGuffin in there, you'll be completely fine, you won't have it be stolen from you, but even then you still have to find it. The reward is the MacGuffin itself, which is a nearly indestructible toon object that is capable of shapeshifting into another MacGuffin. What that means is this can fill in for some legendary, mythical, indestructible technological thing in a jump, and it can gain the functions of those things. Once you do that, it stays in that shape for 6 months, and then you can change it to another shape. It is worth noting, funnily enough, that none of this text right here says that the item is affected by normal toon G-rated logic, other than the little bit about how if someone or something eats it, it will come out the other end in a G-rated manner, whole and undigested. So that means that if you want to use this to create some sort of mythical super weapon, you totally can. So that's something to keep in mind. Some of the other scenarios in this jump, like the creation of New Toontown and Jumper Studios and Wonderland, give those unique capstone items that we have talked about, the 800 choice point ones, as their rewards if you complete them. It is always going to be a challenging thing to successfully complete these scenarios, because what they are offering you are tremendously powerful, in many cases chain defining items. So the amount of effort that you are going to have to put into this is challenging, but the rewards are well worth it. I'm now going to go ahead and share some of my final thoughts on this jump. As thorough as this video series has been, we still haven't talked about everything in this jump. I didn't mention the fact that there are original companions that you could get in this. I didn't mention all of the scenarios. I did not talk about the extensive drawback section. So if you want to go look at this, you totally can. There's also a timeline, notes, note section, and changelog for anyone who is familiar with older versions of this jump, but not newer versions. That said, I absolutely love this jump. I think that if there is any generic that someone could write a shockingly extensive, self-contained story in, where you are a jumper who just goes to one jump and then you stay there. You're essentially just an isekai protagonist getting sent from some other reality to a new reality. It would probably be this one, especially in terms of generic jumps. This is honestly one of my favorite generic jumps of all time and is easily one of my favorite jumps ever. I am so delighted to have had the chance to talk about it for so long. Now, one of the things that I both love and hate about this jump is how incredibly powerful it is. I have talked about stuff like even some abilities that I didn't really highlight all that much, like Hammer Space, are really strong, but I talked about like Mundane Mondays and Stunt Double and Back into the Inkwell and Toon Force, and all of these abilities are incredibly powerful. Even a single one of these abilities can pretty easily be chain defining. I think that of all of the abilities I just mentioned, by itself, Stunt Doubles is probably the weakest, and even then, that is a 10 clone cloning perk that gives your clones all of your abilities, an innate link to you. The one thing that it doesn't quite work as is it's not quite like a shadow clone jutsu type perk where you learn what the clones learn and all of that unless you get back into the inkwell with it, but it is honestly worth investing potentially your entire stipend into that if you already have other strong defensive perks and you don't have a cloning perk. Especially because one of the funny synergies of not Mundane Mondays, but Stunt Doubles with other cloning perks is that the only ability that your clones don't get is Stunt Doubles. They get literally everything else, which means that if you have other cloning powers, they get those other cloning powers. Now, cloning is something that I've always hesitated to put into my chains just because of how incredibly strong it can be. I've always wanted to get cloning perks and to be able to essentially double, triple, quadruple, quintuple, or what have you, the amount of stuff that a jumper can do at a time. But because it's so powerful, I've always like actually waffled on it. I've always been like, ooh, I should go get it, and then just sort of skirted around getting it for my jumpers just because of how strong it is. But that sort of thing is common in this particular jump. Every origin has some sort of thing that becomes incredibly strong. Whether it is Halftoons being able to shut off the silly cartoon, the rated G facets of cartoon physics, and thus being able to actually do stuff like fold someone into a pancake and then just destroy them that way because you wouldn't be able to survive that. Or it is the cartoons having immunity to anything that causes instantaneous death, from Harry Potter AK spell to something like some sort of super magic from the Elder Scrolls or D&D or something like that. It's all just really good. This is a fantastically powerful jump that is both really strong and also really stylistic. Like, I think that a jumper who comes here would actually have a blast in this setting, even beyond all of the cool new toys that they've gotten for the rest of their chain. This is one of the best blendings of a jump that has a really cool base idea and also really phenomenal perks. I love this jump. If you want to have a really powerful jumper, I recommend you send your jumper here. But also, if you want a jumper who just has a blast and enjoys their time in a setting, I think that your jumper could come here, and a lot of jumpers who are first and foremost people and not like power magnets would be able to have a really good heartwarming time here, make a whole bunch of friends, make a whole bunch of new memories, and then leave able to take some of the cartooniness of this jump with them into future jumps. Anyways, I am going to go ahead and end the video here. I've really enjoyed this series. I really enjoyed actually focusing on a jump and like discussing in significant detail all of the little things that it offers. But thankfully, most jumps, even if I were to do this again, would not be this long in terms of me covering like 80% of the stuff in them, because again, there's still stuff that I did not cover in this jump. But I hope that you all are having a wonderful day. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Bye bye, everyone.